at the end of the day, Ghost was supposed to die where I died. I extended it.
Yeah.
I told her she was planning to kill him. See, when people have success for the first time, sometimes they need it to be their own.
How many writers you have in the room?
11.
11 writers.
That's the difference, because all you recognize is the showrunner. You're only looking at the showrunner was 11 people responsible for what you just said.
Right.
When 50 said that Ghost was supposed to die in season 2 with Kanan, due to showrunner at the time Courtney Kemp's decision, but he was able to convince her otherwise and keep Ghost on the show. This made me think that a very similar situation could have happened with the final 5 episodes of Power. What I think may have happened was Courtney Kemp could have likely had the intentions to fully kill off Ghost's character in the final season of Power. But just like before, 50 could have stepped in and made alterations to her plan to kill Ghost yet again. I believe that 50 wanted to keep Ghost's character alive and tell the story of what life would be as James St. Patrick in politics after giving up the dope game as Ghost. This likely led to a clash between Courtney Kemp, 50, as well as Omari Hardwick. So I believe that the common ground that all of them were able to come to was for the season to expand to 15 episodes instead of 10. With Courtney Kemp coming up with the idea of each prospective episode showing different points of view, so that if the next showrunner in the future wanted to bring Ghost back, the door would be open for him to return with all of the different intentionally placed plot holes within the final 5 episodes. Which would explain why Courtney Kemp could never answer a direct question when it came to Ghost's supposed death. Now, of course, Omari and Stars had financial disputes, but more recently with Omari Hardwick stating that Stars asked him to return, followed by Omari saying that the script had to be perfect and the money had to be right. This should tell you that Stars wanted Ghost's return to be more than just a cameo appearance or a narration in Origins. With all of that being said, there has to be a 100% accurate perspective in Season 6 of Power that we haven't seen yet. And in my opinion, I believe that episode 16 of Power showing the real perspective was shot and stored in a vault within the network somewhere. It's blatantly obvious at this point that after watching the last 5 episodes of Season 6 countless times, that every character envisioned and heard what they wanted in their final conversations with Ghost in each of those perspective episodes. Now Courtney Kemp has given numerous inconsistent explanations in the past, but one that I believe was the most consistent was when she said that Ghost's perspective was the most accurate. But what I believe that she was leaving out was the fact that Ghost's perspective had a number of missing moments that could give us many answers to the questions that we had. And here is what I believe episode 16 of Power might show us if it's ever released in the future, whether it be a flashback or an actual release of the full episode. The very first scene in episode 10 opened up with Ghost calling Tariq to come to his place to share things with him that he never had anybody share with him when he was Tariq's age. And this moment was when Ghost began to put his plan into play, because the previous episode ended with Tariq telling Ghost that he would kill him if he ever put hands on Tasha again. And this was the moment when Ghost knew that Tariq was too far gone and there was nothing that he could say or do to make Tariq live the life that he wanted him to, without putting a plan in motion. Which is why he placed all of those stipulations in Tariq's inheritance. If you noticed in this scene, after Ghost left Tariq the voicemail, the look in his eyes and his body language gave off the impression that he had to do something that he really didn't want to do. In the scene directly after this, Ramona gives Ghost a call and tells him to watch the news to hear the news of him becoming lieutenant governor. And yet again, as Ghost is watching the announcement, you could see by his facial expression that he had his doubts. Which goes back to a point I made a while back about Ghost not really wanting to be in politics due to the fear of a number of past enemies, and possibly even relatives from his younger years, resurfacing to blackmail and possibly even expose things that the public didn't know about him. Look real closely at Ghost's face when Ramona tells him that his whole life was about to change. It's almost like he knew that he had to act quickly. Now you have to ask yourself, why would Ghost choose Uncle Gabe's Jazz Club to host the QCP when he hasn't spoke to him in years? Because it was all a part of a bigger plan. Throughout Season 6, Ghost realized that he couldn't trust anyone within his immediate circle, and he realized that everyone in his immediate family would not allow him to step away from the drug game and go legit. Both Tommy and Tasha never took Ghost seriously when he told them in the past, and they always ended up pulling him back into the game. Ghost needed a group of people outside of his circle who could go under the radar and assist him with pulling everything off. And this is where Uncle Gabe came into play. Like I have said in the past, I believe that the scene between Ghost and Uncle Gabe had a major part cut out that we didn't see, with Ghost telling Uncle Gabe about his plans of stepping away from everything, and his fear of losing Tariq to the streets. Ghost likely needed the apartment upstairs so that he can have somewhere to temporarily hide out until his witness protection home and identity were ready. Ghost knew that the jazz club had emotional and historical value, and he knew owning it would earn him community trust in the public eye and give him a clean image after he faked his death. I believe that Ghost came across RSJ at one point in time at either a private event or donor gathering off-screen, where they both saw a piece of themselves in one another, and they could have made a deal for RSJ to advise and lend his connections to Ghost in the business world, in exchange for Ghost to sell him the QCP building. Which would explain why Ghost left the property in Tariq's inheritance, so that RSJ could buy the QCP building without it being tied directly to Ghost. Ghost knew that Tariq wouldn't do anything with the property after leaving it in his inheritance, and I believe this was always the plan from the very beginning. Which perfectly ties right into the next scene from episode 10 that we see Ghost in, which was the conversation that he had with Simon Stern about needing funding for the QCP project. Look closely at Ghost's eyes, as he says with everything on the line the way it is.
And it's all true. I never wanted to go back there, but now, with everything on the line the way it is, it just seemed like a perfect solution.
I believe that in Ghost's mind, he knew that he needed to make sure everything was on point exactly like he planned it to go. In this same scene, Simon Stern can be heard telling Ghost that he's his only real friend that he has left, followed by asking Ghost to take a look at some developmental projects after the election was over. This was yet another major giveaway in my opinion, and could explain what Ghost has been doing this entire time. This moment between Simon Stern and Ghost is yet another scene that I believe had footage cut out, not showing us the entire conversation of Ghost telling Simon Stern about faking his death. And those same developmental projects that Stern mentioned could be nightclubs outside of New York that he wanted Ghost to oversee. The next scene of Ghost was him walking to his penthouse as the ambulance passes by. There seemed to be a major emphasis put on the camera catching Ghost's reaction to the ambulance passing by, and I believe that this was all done intentionally by the writers. Another thing that I believe was intentionally done by the writers in episode 10 was having Ghost visit Rena's gravesite for the very first time since her death. This scene almost felt like a goodbye moment for Ghost since he would be leaving New York after pulling off his plan. In this same scene, Ghost can also be heard telling Tasha that he has a whole life ahead of him and that nothing can stop him now.
I got a whole new life ahead of me. No one can stop me now.
It's still mind-blowing that a lot of people didn't even think to question why Ghost continually told every last person that he was on bad terms with the words "nothing can stop me." Ghost knew exactly what he was doing by saying that to everyone. Out of everyone, I believe only Ramona, Simon Stern, Uncle Gabe, and Steven out of the DNC truly were the only people that were aware of Ghost's ultimate plan. I believe that Ghost was seconds away from telling Tommy, right before they were shot at by Tate's hitmen. However, I do think that Ghost left either a burner phone or some type of letter informing Tommy of where he can be reached if he ever needed him. And I think that Ghost left one of these inside the car that he left Tommy in the inheritance. Another piece of evidence that supports the inaccurate perspective was in episode 10 when Tariq and Dre showed up to Ghost's office. If you notice, Tariq walks in the office first and then Dre enters after. But in episode 11, Dre's perspective shows them entering at the same time. The dialogue in episode 10 between Tariq and Ghost is also different from Tariq's perspective as well.
I'm glad you hit me back, man. Let me look at you. Look, I know you said some things you didn't mean, and I said some things.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to fight with you anymore.
See you. Hey, man. Look, about the other day, I'm sure you said some things that you didn't mean to say.
I meant everything I said.
Subtle moments like these are spread throughout the last 5 episodes, and they all seem intentionally done rather than just plot holes. Towards the end of episode 10, just before the final scene of Ghost getting shot, Ghost's conversation with Ramona may have been the most awkward. Ghost can be heard telling Ramona that he will meet her at the hotel after he gets a few things done at the club. But in my opinion, I believe that they both were talking in code. When Ghost tells Ramona, "I'll meet you at the hotel," this could be his way of telling her to wait for him to disappear. The hotel could be a code word for a safe place or refuge, but not necessarily a physical hotel. In this coded language, the hotel could be a metaphor for the next phase of his life, a new identity, and a life where he's dead to the world. Ghost might be telling Ramona to meet him once the dust settles, which means once he's successfully staged his death and disappeared into hiding. If Ghost faked his death, the meeting might not have happened right after the supposed shooting. But instead, it could be an understanding that once the news breaks, Ramona will be in the position to receive a signal, a sign, or a time frame to reconnect once the world believes Ghost is truly gone. In the montage of Ghost closing down Club Truth, walking around the club just before he stands directly in front of the railing waiting for Tariq to show up, these moments felt like Ghost was saying his last goodbyes to the club because he knew that the final part of his plan was about to unfold. The key to his escape plan was to ensure no one could trace his death as anything other than legitimate, which meant orchestrating a death scene that appeared both realistic and irreversible. And he knew that he needed someone with enough power and pull to make everything go under the radar. Which is where Steven Ott comes into play. Steven Ott's influence as someone connected to powerful political figures, he could easily manipulate the media and spin any event like a fake death into a politically charged newsworthy event. Ghost could have called in a favor from Steven Ott, convincing him to help stage his death in a way that would guarantee no questions would be asked. Steven Ott's ability to pull strings on the media, combined with his political connections, meant he could disappear Ghost's existence completely. He could help Ghost change his identity, set up a cover story, and ensure that everyone involved in the process had the right alibis. The random security guard who appeared at the nightclub in episode 10 was a critical piece of the puzzle. On the surface, he seemed like just another staff member at Truth, but he was actually an integral part of Ghost's plan to fake his death. Club Truth had multiple exits, hidden cameras, and plenty of security measures. The security guard would have been in a position to ensure the cameras were turned off, while also making sure that the paramedics were delayed or sent to the wrong location, to buy him enough time to pull the ambulance around to get Ghost out of there after the shooting. Ensuring that Ghost's body was never thoroughly examined at the morgue while also making sure that only Tommy, Tasha, and Tariq could be convinced of his death. This would have allowed Ghost a chance to escape in the chaos, while the world believed he was dead. Even though we saw Ghost get shot and fall over the railing, if he was wearing a bulletproof vest, or replaced the bullets in Tariq's gun with blanks, he would be able to survive the fall without any life-altering damage. And not to mention, realism has been almost non-existent throughout the history of every series. So what this all means is that whenever they decide to pay Omari what he's asking, I believe he will return. And for all we know, he could very well appear in Force or Power Legacy, in the flesh and not as a ghost. With the ratings being at an all-time low for Starz Network in the last quarter of this year, it seems like Ghost's return could be a win-win for everyone. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for all things within the Power universe. See you all next time in the universe of Power.